While the teams in Europe might be viewing the tournament as a distraction, the opposite is the case in the 6 teams coming from South America. In Brazil, the league is stopping for a month because of the tournament, and to discuss that and much more about the South American teams, we're joined by Tim Vickery, the South American football expert. How are you, Tim?
I'm very well. Looking forward to kicking this global ball. The ball is around, and so is the world. Kicking this ball around with you over the next few minutes.
Well, let's start then with that point about obviously the league stopping. I mean, why is it that they're taking this as seriously as they are?
Oh, if I put that question to anyone here and say that someone questioned it, they bite your head off. Let's remember that our Champions League, the Libertadores, it started in 1960 explicitly because Europe had a champion. It was an explicit response. All right. You've got a champion there in Europe. We'll have a champion this side, and then we'll have a match to see who's the best in the world. Now, that's absolutely vital to the soul of South American football. So this kind of competition, it's an absolute dream come true for them. The chance to prove themselves against those rich European cousins. So it's a tournament here with massive potential rewards, but also risks. Because the risk is playing against the sides from outside Europe, who Brazilians tend to look down their nose at. And the Continental Cup that happens at the end of every year, you see that carrot and stick thing so clearly, because the dream is always to play the Europeans and beat the Europeans, and it hasn't happened for a long, long time. Last time it happened was Corinthians beating Chelsea in 2012. But the risk is losing the semi-final to a side from outside Europe. So this is a tournament which, for the South Americans, has tremendous possible rewards, both financially and, more important to them, I think, to the fans, in terms of prestige, proving the strength of South American club football. But there is the potential banana skin of losing to sides outside Europe.
Just to add to that, Tim, because I was in Doha. I think it was 2019 when Liverpool played Flamengo. I think James, you might have been in Abu Dhabi in 2021 when Chelsea beat Palmeiras.
Yeah.
One thing that struck me both occasions was the absolute huge following that the Brazilian teams had, and I think fans in Europe won't kind of grasp how big it is to teams in South America, especially Brazil. It seems that the Brazilian teams, Flamengo particularly, have got this desire to prove that they are heavyweight football clubs.
Well, Argentine teams have sent supporters in mass numbers as well to these games, depending on fluctuations of the economy and the exchange rate. There'll be probably a little bit less support than there would have been were it not for political developments in the United States at the moment. But there will still be mass support. I think it's the South Americans, and especially the Brazilians, who are right up there at the top of people who've bought tickets for this Club World Cup.
Well, Tim, could you just talk us through, for the uninitiated, the 6 South American teams?
Well, if Brazil has really cut away from the pack in South America in recent years, on the last 6 finals of our Libertadores, our Champions League, have been won by Brazilians. 4 of them have been all Brazilian affairs. That's unprecedented dominance, and you're really seeing Brazil cut away from the pack. So we've got 4 teams from Brazil and 2 from Argentina. The 2 most serious contenders are Flamengo and Palmeiras. Very strong sides, very, very deep squads, very, very motivated squads. They're the ones to really watch, I think, with the possibility of going all the way in this tournament. Both have interesting coaches. Felipe Luis, a great hope of Brazilian coaches. We haven't had too many top-class Brazilian players turn to coaching. Great contrast this with Argentina. So Felipe Luis, former Chelsea, former Atletico Madrid left-back, he's got a very, very deep squad there at Flamengo. The Palmeiras coach is Portuguese, Abel Ferreira, and he really is one to watch. There's a lot of the young Mourinho about him, both in terms of his brilliance as a coach and maybe excesses of behaviour as well. And he can always find a plan. He's very, very, very impressive. So the strongest 2, I think, are Flamengo and Palmeiras. Botafogo are the reigning Brazilian and South American champions, but they've sold a few players. They're going to be selling more after the Club World Cup. and I don't think they're as strong as they were last year. Fluminense, I think of the four Brazilians are probably the weakest. Although they have one or two interesting players, but I'd be surprised if they go really deep into the competition. For the Argentine sides, it's the big two, River Plate and Boca Juniors. Boca are in a real mess. They've had a terrible time. Just bringing in a new coach, meet the new coach, same as the old coach. He's back for his third spell. He's the coach who led them to their last Libertadores triumph, Miguel Angel Russo, back in 2007. So I think there's a fear that Boca might be humiliated. I don't think that's going to happen. I think they'll close ranks and make sure they're solid, but it's hard to see them going all the way. River Plate, very deep squad. Marcelo Gallardo, the coach, is extremely highly rated. His second spell hasn't been anything like as glittering as his first spell so far. They have some interesting players, but I'll be interested to see if they can balance a desire to attack with the necessity to defend at the level at which they'll be competing over the next few weeks.
I think a lot of European fans in particular will be quite looking forward to watching some of the South American teams and trying to pick the next, South American gem who's going to move to Europe and be the next big thing. Is there any players in those teams who have qualified who you think may use this tournament as the stage to kind of really, bring themselves up into public consciousness?
Well, there's a couple there who are already moving to Europe straight afterwards. The big one is Estevão, who's going to Chelsea. Started, 18-year-old, just turned 18. Started for Brazil last night and didn't do badly at all. And he's an extraordinary talent. The best thing that's come out of Brazilian football since Neymar, I think. And another one who's moving to the Premier League straight after the tournament is the Botafogo centre forward, Igor Jesus. Who's a wonderful all-round centre forward, gives you so many things. It's a fantastic story, Igor Jesus, because he was in the Arab Emirates, a virtual unknown, not even a household name in his own home, I think. But Botafogo, whose scouting is very, very good, they picked him up when his contract was up, so they picked him up on a free. They unveiled him last July, and by September he's playing for Brazil at centre forward. He's not in the current Brazil squad, but Ancelotti saw him last week. One of the finest individual performances you could hope to see from a centre forward. So it wouldn't surprise me if he's going to get back in the Brazil squad. He's off to Nottingham Forest after the Club World Cup. So those are a couple of players who supporters are going to be very, very interested in. Another one who's hitting a lot of headlines, 17, turns 18 in August and made his Argentina debut last night. Franco Mastantuono of River Plate, who is a very classy playmaker, left-footed. Reminds me a little bit. He's got a little bit of the languid class of a young left-footed Zinedine Zidane about him, which does make me feel fascinated about how he's going to get on in more compact football, because he does lose the ball a little bit. So those are giant talents, I think. All of them, and Mastantuono is on everyone's shopping list at the moment, especially Real Madrid's. There are a few others. Boca, little holding midfielder called Milton Delgado, who's good at receiving under pressure, playing out from the back. So it's just simple little passes to keep it ticking over. So I think in the Boca side, he's certainly one to watch. The Flamengo right back Wesley in the national team squad. A little bit of an old-fashioned Brazilian attacking right back, bullet quick. Got some attacking talent. I think people will be interested in him. Which teams have we got left? I think we've only got Fluminense left. Fluminense, it's a player who surprises me that he's not in Europe already, and it may be because of his age, because he's already mid-20s. Little stocky Colombian midfielder, his first choice for Colombia, called John Arias, who can play as a winger, plays for Colombia more as a central midfielder. And if you remember, if you saw that intercontinental final between Man City and Fluminense, he was the one who stood out. He carried the fight to Man City. Turns so well, stocky little figure, versatile. It's surprised me that, and I think it's come as a surprise to him as well, and a negative surprise that he hasn't been snapped up by Europe already. Maybe this will be a big chance for him to put himself in the window.
Rob and I were talking earlier, Tim, about I think the first iteration of this tournament was back in 2000 in Brazil, when Manchester United and Real Madrid played over in Brazil, and United played Vasco da Gama, and two greats of Brazilian football from basically come back to Brazil, Romario and Edmundo, to help Vasco in that tournament. Now, I don't think there's as many superstar veterans that are playing, but there are one or two that are playing in South America this year. I think Cavani's the main one.
Yes, although he's been struggling, he's been having a hard time. Edison Cavani. I was there in the stadium for that one. And both and Romario would have been back in Brazilian football really for about 5 years. Then he'd had one or two little gallivants off, and Edmundo had a little spell with Fiorentina, which didn't end too well when he forced his contractual right to come home for Carnival when they had a striker crisis. And a key thing about that tournament was, and it was played in just intense summer heat. United were coming straight out of the European winter, and especially in the first half before the pitch was in shadow, they really struggled. But this obviously is an issue also for the Club World Cup and for the World Cup next year. And I remember the Copa America held in the States last year, and this time round, we've got some considerably earlier kickoff times than we had for the Copa America. But in one of the earlier games for the Copa America last year, before half-time, a linesman collapsed and had to be hospitalised because of the heat. He was from Guatemala. Now, that's in all of this talk about the Club World Cup, which I think is both on the one hand, I think it's a terrific thing. It's a wonderful thing to get all of the clubs the best clubs from different continents together. It's a wonderful thing. On the other hand, you do worry about the demands that are being made on players, and playing it in intense summer heat. I think there's a real risk here that we're gonna be burning out some of our stars.
Just finally, then, Tim, sort of $1 million question linked to that, really, because we all sort of think the heat will obviously favour the South American teams, given an advantage. Do you think one of the South American teams can actually go on and win this? I mean, where is their level compared to the best in Europe?
I think we're going to find out, and that's the fascinating thing. And I think that they have a number of advantages. The heat is one of them. Another is the level of motivation. It's going to mean much more to them than it will to most of the opposition. And they're putting a lot of hope in this, that it's mid-season for them, and it's end of season. And you fellas will know this much better than I will. But you get the feeling from the European clubs that it's a bit of an inconvenience, and they're there for the money. They've been seduced, by the money, and how much of this is going to seep into the dressing room. So I think that the South Americans do have considerable advantages in this tournament, in terms of conditions and in terms of the motivation and in terms of the moment that it's being played. But we are totally in unknown territory, and they could end up losing to sides like Esperance. It's the risk and the reward of this tournament from a South American perspective. But certainly at the start, at this moment, especially Flamengo and Palmeiras, they're going in it to win it.
Well, thanks very much for joining us, Tim. Really appreciate your insight. And when we come back, we'll be looking at the importance some of the teams in Europe are placing on the competition.